Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be watching a video that looks very funny. It's called Why German Sounds So Aggressive.
We are German, and as such, we are always self-conscious about getting angry in public.
Oh my god.
Our language is quite the troll.
I can do an evil old Hausfrau. Ess dein Schnitzel, sonst kriegst du keinen Nachtisch.
Deutschland ist ein Land und Stadtluten.
Ah ja, lass die Hände hoch. Nimm einen dicken Schritt. Glaubst du, dass die Deutsche keinen Humor hat, ha?
German sounds harsh and aggressive.
Harsh is the word.
Ich will ein klein Brotchen haben, bitte schön. Das schwarze Brotchen mit dem Käse.
Everyone's just speaking nonsense.
It's a disgusting language. Nobody should ever speak it. It sounds like typewriters eating tinfoil being kicked down the stairs. And somebody is talking to you in German. They're saying, and you think, what is happening to you from behind? How can we make it stop?
Someone, somewhere, is always making fun of our language. But why does
Sadly, yeah.
German sound so aggressive to the rest of the world? The German language is part of the Germanic branch of the Indo-Germanic language family. Besides German, Dutch and English are also Germanic languages. But while
Also
English sounds gentle to many people, German is often described as spat, barked, ugly, dry, cold, harsh, yapping, and military. German is
barked.
rarely perceived as beautiful. There are several reasons for this.
1. Linguistic characteristics.
German has a lot of gutturals and glottal stops. They can make the language sound harsh. Let's start with guttural sounds. German
Yeah,
has
it's
the
true.
special ach sound, which sounds very throaty. It can be heard in the German words fauchen, which means to hiss, or krach, which means noise. These words are often difficult for non-German speakers to pronounce because these sounds don't exist in widespread languages like English.
Yeah.
Next, glottal stops. Germans pronounce vowels very strongly, especially when they appear at the beginning of a word. This causes the vocal cords to open suddenly and all the air that has built up to escape at once. Take the word apple. The German word is Apfel. You can hear it quite well throughout this example. Ich esse oft Äpfel und anderes Obst. In many other languages, the words of a sentence are spoken in a flow. In German, sometimes there's a mini pause before each individual word. Here you can hear the difference. Everything is alright. Alles ist in Ordnung. Of course, I'm overdoing it a bit here, but you get the idea.
I could see a difference,
These
yeah.
breaks can make German sound a bit barked. Some sounds exist in almost all languages, such as M and B. Others are quite unique and only appear in a few languages. In English, there's the digraph th, for example in thanks. Germans, including me, often struggle to pronounce that. Italian, which is often considered to be a beautiful, melodious language, uses mainly vowels and only a few exotic sounds.
Oh my god, it's
German,
true.
on the other hand, has many rare, complex sounds, which might come off as strange. We use so-called umlaute, such as ä,
The
ö,
thingy,
and
yeah.
ü. Again, often hard to pronounce for non-German speakers. And
Yeah.
there's the SZ. It looks like this
What's that?
and is essential for our all-time favorite word, Scheiße. The SZ is used to indicate the hard S sound. Plus, many German words just have a lot of consonants. For example,
true.
Strumpf, or a classic selbstverständlich, which means of
What's
course.
that?
German
Oh.
is complicated, and as humans we
Yes.
often shy away from complexity. But isn't the real challenge to transform complexity into something enjoyable and intriguing? That's kind of the ethos of this channel and also the essence of today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant offers interactive games, puzzles, and a bunch of resources to teach you about subjects like tech or science. They customize content to fit your needs and let you explore at your own pace. They have a fantastic new course about computer science fundamentals that we personally enjoyed a lot. If that's not your cup of tea, there's a vast library of other stuff, and new lessons are added every month. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/fern or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Let's jump back in. Hit it, Cybermerkel.
2. Infinite words.
very long words
This
because they're
is a
compounds.
not made up, absolutely real German word with 79 letters.
Oh my God.
Rinderkennzeichnungs-Fleischetikettierungsüberwachungsaufgabenübertragungsgesetz. We will not bother you with what it means here. What we're trying to tell you is this. German has a high number of compound words. These can be really cool because the word often literally describes what it means. For example, you have a house and a Tier, an animal, and together it is a house-tier, a pet. Though as a people, we seem to have made it our goal to put together as many words as possible. This has led to many long and insanely complex creations.
Yeah.
Mark Twain already made fun of this word and many others in 1880 in his famous essay, The Awful German Language. He writes,
No way.
These things
like
are
that?
not words, they are alphabetical processions. And the inventor of them ought to have been killed. And because the words are weird, a lot of non-German speakers find them very entertaining. They have something weirdly over-precise and orderly about them. Combined with their guttural and glottal stop consonant-loaded delivery, it can give them a military touch. Ironically, we have a word for this. Konsonantenschlacht. Every German-speaking actor or model has to do the German word quiz on an American talk show at least once.
Bezirksschornsteinfegermeister.
Schmetterlingsbeinschlag.
Backpfeifengesicht.
Albeit this last one being an absolute banger of a word, meaning a face that's just inviting a good slap like Jimmy Fallon's, these shows only strengthen the image of the difficult and weird German language. And this leads us to
3. Prejudices.
Good point. Great point.
What do people think of when they think of Germany?
Oh, come on.
And they're saying to
no.
you something like, we have been better, but we're very vibrant in the theatre and arts and so on. All the time you listen to this, you're thinking, Hitler.
During the two world wars, the German naturally became the enemy in many countries. German-American relations changed drastically. In the US, the teaching of German was banned. German programs were no longer allowed to be played on the radio. Authorities called for a boycott of German goods. Streets and even sauerkraut were renamed. Hitler is possibly history's most terrifying figure. Germany's history, once so gruesome, it is rightly so echoed, processed and analyzed countless times in all forms of media, so it may never be forgotten. According to many linguists, the perception of the German language is in part the result of these historical and socio-cultural contexts. German might have an image problem. Linguists would point out that you shouldn't judge a language based on its sound. What sounds strange to one person is beautiful to another.
Of course.
And if you label a language as ugly, you might miss out on fascinating insights into other worlds of thought and sound. So lastly, let us introduce you to some beautiful German words you can pretentiously incorporate into your Sprachgebrauch. Fernweh describes the opposite of homesickness, the longing for distant places. Weltschmerz is a feeling of knowing that the world will always fail to meet your expectations because of the prevalence of pain existing throughout it. And lastly, Treppenwitz, a joke or thought that you think of too late, just as you walked out the door, already on the stairs. Like, I'm sure there's a nice way to finish the video here, but I guess it just won't come to me until we hit publish.
It's Triplewitz. I don't know how to pronounce it. Oh, yeah, this was an incredible video. I like what he said of, like, obviously, like, the explanations. I'm like, yeah, you know what? He makes a good point, and I can see why people do feel that way about German language. But I love that he ended up on a very positive note, and I love that he said, you know, what sounds beautiful to some people may sound weird to others. And that's what I said, because I'm like, yeah, like I said at the beginning, I don't think German, like, I do know that it's a cliche, and it's like a lot of people do say that, oh, you know, German, when a German person it's talking to you, you feel they're just like yelling and they're mad at you. But it's not necessarily like that. I do think German is a very beautiful language. It's a very pretty language. It has a lot of, like, it's a very interesting language, I think. Especially like all the compound words, because I know it's a very hard language, I think, at least coming from our perspective. But of course, again, it's a matter of perspective, because I think if you speak like Dutch or a similar language, of course you're not going to think, oh, it sounds weird, it looks weird, or it's hard to learn to speak German. because you already have like the basis. As if, I don't know, like a German person probably is gonna think, I don't know, like a hard language for a German person to speak, that maybe another person gonna be like, no, it's easier for me because I already know like a similar language. So again, it's all a perspective, and I think, like he said, it's all about like how prejudiced you are. And he does make a really good point that I hadn't really thought of, because I thought it was, and it's sort of like he's sort of like a little he contradicts himself a little bit, because it was like, well, a lot of it is post-World War II, because obviously we know the implications of history, and a lot of like prejudice come from that, because there was a lot of like anti-German sentiments during and afterwards. And then you sort of like stuck on, and that's why I think in society and in culture, as you know, usually that's what we say, like, oh no, like people say the thing about like, oh no, you're German, like they have a little bit of like, it sounds like yelling. But it's because of that. Obviously, it's because of the war. And I think like that stuck. But however, and that makes a really good point. And again, it's like the prejudice thing, that I think we should all be less prejudiced when it comes to a lot of things. And obviously like the German language is one of them. But he also said that Mark Twain apparently, like even in the 1800s, was like, this is horrible language that shouldn't have existed. So I'm like, no, he said like a quote. I don't know if that's true, because I'm like, did Mark Twain really did say that? I refuse to believe it. He was like, obviously I thought it was a joke, right? Like he's not actually being serious. Like, oh, they should like banish that language. But it is funny that they were, even in the 1800s, they were like, this sounds weird, and it sounds, I think, like barked. I think that's probably the right. If I wouldn't say it sounds ugly or aggressive, but I do think it's a very strong language. Like it sounds barked. A lot of words sound barked. Like you're like, ah. But he makes a good point, and it's all about like the vowels and the sounds that are specific to that language, and that's why it doesn't sound as melodic maybe as something like Italian probably, or something like French, that I think are languages that are more, maybe like they flow a little bit better, but also because they have a lot of vowels. And obviously like the German language does have a lot of consonants and a lot of sounds that don't really exist in any other language. So of course they're gonna sound weird if you don't really speak it. You're gonna be like, oh no, they're yelling at me, and they're actually like being super nice to you. But also I think it's a thing about just getting used to it, because once you get used to it, it sounds normal. And I think it's because if you're not used to someone speaking German to you, you're gonna be thinking, oh my god, like I'm in trouble. And it's like, no, it's because you're not used to someone speaking German to you. But I do like the fact that even in the whole like the explanation and all the explanations and justifications I think it's nice, because it reflects a lot of like German culture in general. And, you know, again, being super generalized, I think it does. It reflects how German culture tends to be. Like they're very organized, they're direct, they're to the point, they're very specific, they're very organized. So I do think, and I like that the German language does reflect like how culture in Germany actually is, and how the society tends to be. So it's like, you know what, that's actually quite nice. I like that, because it's a language that reflects its people, and I think that's like what a great compliment. But yeah, although the compound words, I'm like, it sounds insane out of context. Like just seeing a word that has like 70 letters, that's insane. Although I do know that there are other languages that also have that, especially like older languages. Like, I don't know, I think Gaelic, I think has those, or maybe Irish, I don't know. But I know there are some other European languages that also tend to fall like in the same category of like, what on earth is this, and how on earth do you pronounce this? So it's not just German. And I do have to say also to the German sort of like German population, that I think the Scottish accent and the Scottish probably, like how Scottish people, they have like a really strong accent. I've also heard they also speak like barked, like especially coming from someone that's used to like an English as in British from London accent, and you hear someone from Scotland from like a very strong Scottish accent pronounce words, people are going to think like, oh, it's also like super barked. So, you know, it's not the only language that people think that is barked. And I think they probably do have some similarities, because I think it's very like strong and very guttural. I think that's probably the right term. And I think they do share some similarities because, again, they're very guttural. So I think it has to come like from the throat. And that's probably why people like think like, oh no, they're yelling at me. That this was incredibly interesting. And I do want to learn German at some point in my life. Hopefully soon. But it looks like a hard language. But yeah, this was incredibly interesting. And I'll see you next time. Bye.